Bernie Sanders is again walking the walk, literally. Yesterday, Senator Sanders joined hundreds of striking workers just blocks from both the White House and Donald Trump's new D.C. hotel. Kind of ironic. Now, he did this to call on Trump to deliver on his promise of, hey, let's get some people some higher paying jobs and better wages. Now, he said that this is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. It's not a radical idea to say that if you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. We're telling Mr. Trump that when millions of us stand together, we're going to win. No one is going to stop us. Now, I love that message. Damn straight. If we do all stand together, we do end up winning. In fact, that's why Fight for 15 has actually been fairly successful in a lot of places. They ended up getting minimum wage increases on the ballots in a lot of different states. Now, some of the states that went Republican during the election, in some areas, and look, sometimes statewide, sometimes in different cities, they ended up seeing a higher minimum wage. Turns out, ends up being a fairly popular measure when you say, hey, we should raise the minimum wage to at least $10.10. That's over 60% of the population support an increase of that much. Now, the higher you go, of course, the less support you have. $12 is somewhere around over 50%, and $15 is a little less than 50%, somewhere around 46 to 48%. And I'm just getting these numbers off the top of my head. Now, let's see. As I said, very popular among American people. Now, Bernie Sanders, of course, wasn't the only Congress member there. You also had Representative Keith Ellison, who was favored to become the next chairman of the DNC. You also had Danny Glover there as well, who also spoke to the striking workers. Now, so look, there's a little bit of star power. You had Bernie Sanders and Danny Glover and Keith Ellison. So that's great. It's good to see them there. It's good to see them walking the walk. Now, Ellison told the workers, quote, if we've got to get arrested, we'll get arrested, but we should not give up this fight. You also had Representative Mark Pocan from Wisconsin, who also spoke there, calling on Trump to issue an executive order demanding that federal contractors that do business with the government pay their workers no less than a living wage, $15 an hour, which again is great. So here is, as I said, Bernie Sanders, Keith Ellison, Mark Pocan. They're out there. They're walking the walk. They're picketing with the people on strike. You know, it's funny. It's kind of what Obama promised to do, but never did during his re-election. I mean, he did not walk the walk, and sadly, that's because he was never really that progressive. Now, although to be fair, he did do an executive order to pay federal contractors $10.10. So there you go. But the thing is, and the reason that they're calling for federal contractors to do this, or I'm sorry, the federal government, is that Congress has to approve a minimum wage for everyone who isn't a federal worker. So if you do an executive order, it only affects federal contractors. So there's that. Now, unfortunately, that is unlikely to happen in this era of Trump with a fully Republican Congress. If it's one thing that Republicans have shown is that they don't give a fuck about workers and they don't give a fuck about raising your wages. So you're a little stuck. Now, Trump himself is a little different because he really didn't have that much of a position. First, he said, I believe the minimum wage is too high. Which then later he said, no, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. Yeah, you're wrong. You're wrong. I did not say that. Yeah. Wrong. I didn't say it. No. Then he said, look, we should have a minimum wage. We should send it to the states. And then finally saying, look, well, let's create a better economy and have the wages go up naturally by developing a healthy, growing economy. That's what he said. But see, look, that whole thing, unfortunately, that doesn't seem to happen naturally. What happens naturally is that the robber barons get so much wealth that they, instead of sharing it with their workers, they end up hoarding the money. That's what happens when you don't have a minimum wage. How do we know that? Well, it's history. Look at the history. Look at the robber barons. Look at the company store. That's what happens when you don't have regulation. That's what happens when you don't have a minimum wage. They will take advantage of you. They will screw you over in order to hoard that money for themselves. And remember, you had Papa John Schnatter, right? CEO of Papa John's, which, by the way, their pizza fucking sucks. So, fuck you, John Schnatter, your pizza sucks. He said that he has no obligation, if his company makes money, it gets very wealthy, which it has, that he has no obligation to share that company's wealth with its workers. No. I get to keep all the wealth. You work for me for what little I give you, and I take the rest, and I go buy a fucking castle. He does live in a castle. And that's undeniable. And to relate it with Trump, look, Donald Trump, until Inauguration Day, lives in a tower. Castle, tower. You expect these people to understand and empathize with the plight of the working person? No, absolutely not. This guy's a con man. He's a snake oil salesman. I very much doubt Donald Trump will do anything to raise the minimum wage. In fact, his tax plan gives most of the gains to the very, very rich. Of course it does. And besides, even if Donald Trump surprised me by coming out and saying, you know what? No, I do believe in a living wage. Fair wage for fair work. Great. Well, I doubt the Republicans in Congress would actually let him do anything like that. So, look, this is a good show, right? A good show, good effort by Bernie Sanders and Keith Ellison, and I think they should keep doing this to show that there is actually somebody out there fighting for the working class. Now, look, Donald Trump only lied about working for the working class, about representing the working class. He doesn't represent you. No, what he's going to do is he's going to cut regulations, he's going to cut taxes on the rich, he's going to cut all these so-called entitlements, these welfare programs, and he's going to give all that money to his rich friends. That's exactly what's going to happen, and we've seen this coming over the past year. We know where Donald Trump stands. So as much as great as this is to see, Bernie Sanders and Keith Ellison fighting back, it's not going to have an impact as far as the politicians are concerned. Now, what it might do, and what I hope that it will do, is that it will galvanize working people from across the country and galvanize progressives to go and fight for these issues, because that's the only way it's going to happen. We can't leave it to just one or two politicians to fight our battles. We need to fight. We need to mobilize. We need to get out, not only in the streets, but in the voting booth, and go and fight for our wages and fight for our rights in the state houses. Fight for our right to organize. That's what we do. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation.